My sister tricked our parents into signing over their house. Now she's furious I outsmarted her. She's listing the house for sale? That can't be right. I said out loud to no one but my coffee mug. It started with a crumpled paper half sticking out of a kitchen drawer. I wasn't snooping. Honestly, I was just reaching for a pen. But when I tugged it free, something about the bolded grantor and grantee caught my eye. And there it was, my parents' names in one box, and my sister Jenna's in the other. The word quitclaim deed sat smugly at the top. First I thought no way. But then I remembered the weird way Jenna had been hovering around them lately, bringing over fresh muffins and saying things like, "We really should get your affairs in order." She's never baked a damn thing in her life. But here she was, suddenly Martha Stewart with a legal pad. So yeah, my heart dropped. I snapped a photo of the doc and slid it back where I found it. I didn't say anything that night. Not while Jenna and Mom chatted about birds on the feeder. Not while Dad fell asleep in his recliner with Jeopardy on in the background. But something was off. Something had been off. It all clicked into place the next day when I looked up the form online. It wasn't just a harmless bit of paperwork. Jenna had tricked them into signing over the deed. I felt like I'd swallowed gravel. My folks aren't senile, not even close, but they trust her. Jenna, with her breezy confidence and, I read about this in Forbes Energy, had sold them on the idea that this was smart estate planning. Just simplifies things for later. I could practically hear her saying. I stared at the ceiling that night, wondering if they even realized what they'd signed. And here's the kicker. I wasn't angry. Not at first. Just tired. Tired of watching Jenna manipulate her way through every family decision like we were just pawns in her personal board game. But now she was playing with the roof over our parents' heads. I had two options. Confront her and get shut down, or do some digging. Guess which one I picked. I didn't sleep much after that night. The next morning, I offered to run errands for Mom just to get back in the house alone. I made sure Jenna wasn't around. She'd left earlier in one of her high-powered blazers, off to take a few meetings. Whatever that meant. Once the coast was clear, I dove into the office. My parents don't exactly keep a filing system. Their important documents were shoved in random drawers, old cookie tins, even inside a Jenga box on a shelf. I found a manila envelope that nearly stopped my heart. It was labeled house stuff. Inside were 4 more documents Jenna had them sign. One of them, power of attorney. Another was something about joint tenancy. I didn't know all the lingo, but I could see enough to know Jenna had positioned herself to take over everything if anything happened to them. The manipulation was so subtle it made me sick. The papers were dated months apart. Slow. Gradual. Like boiling a frog 1 degree at a time. I took pictures of everything. Every single page. Later that night, I showed Mom and Dad the photos. "What's this?" Dad asked, holding my phone close to his face. He tapped the screen like he was trying to make sense of it through osmosis. "You tell me," I said softly. "Did you know you signed over the deed?" Mom blinked. "No, honey, that's not." Jenna said it was just so things would be easier. "Easier for who?" I asked. "She has power of attorney now. She could sell this house tomorrow, and legally you'd have no say." Dad went pale. Mom looked like someone had taken the air out of her. And then, in the quiet, Dad whispered something I'll never forget. She said it was just paperwork for insurance. She said she'd handle everything when the time came. That was the moment I made my decision. Not just to stop her, but to undo it. Quietly, legally, without giving her a single heads up. I wasn't going to let her steamroll them again. But I had to act fast, because Jenna wasn't just playing with signatures. She was playing for keeps. The next morning, I made 2 calls. One to my friend Adam, who's a trust attorney, and another to Jenna, pretending I just happened to be in the area and wanted to catch up. Jenna didn't pick up. Classic. She only answers when it benefits her. But Adam? He answered on the second ring, groggy but curious. "You said she what?" he asked after I explained everything. "Man, that's not just shady. That's legally questionable, depending on how she got the signatures." He walked me through it. Best case, we could argue undue influence. Worst case, it'd turn into a long court battle, but there was a loophole. If I could get Mom and Dad to revoke her power of attorney and establish a living trust instead, we could freeze her out before she made her next move. Adam didn't mince words. You've got a small window. She might already be prepping the house for sale. You need to get those docs undone now. That afternoon, I drove my parents to Adam's office under the pretense of updating their insurance stuff. I didn't lie, I just omitted the part where we'd be voiding Jenna's legal chokehold. They were hesitant at first. Especially Mom. She kept saying, but she's family. But Dad, quiet, gentle Dad, he didn't argue. He just signed where Adam told him to. Said something like, if I have to pick between peace and Jenna, I choose peace. By 4 p.m., Jenna's power of attorney was null and void. By 5, the house deed was pulled back into a protective trust under Mom and Dad's names with me as successor trustee. Meaning, no one could sell it or touch it without their explicit consent, and after them it was mine to handle, not Jenna's. I thought I'd feel triumphant. But really? I just felt, still, like I was waiting for an earthquake I knew was coming. I didn't have to wait long. The next morning, Jenna burst into the house like a real estate agent on a caffeine bender. She was waving her phone, high-fiving herself. I got an offer, she shouted. All cash, no contingencies. It's happening. Dad and I were sitting at the kitchen table. He slowly set down his coffee, cleared his throat, and said, no, Jen. It's not. She froze. What do you mean no? That offer doesn't mean anything, I said, standing up. Because you don't own this house. And you don't have power of attorney anymore. Her face drained so fast I thought she might actually faint. You did what? She snapped, voice climbing an octave with every syllable. I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. I just handed her a copy of the new trust paperwork and said, game over. She stormed out so fast she left her purse behind. And all I could think was, she's not done. But this time, neither am I. The text came an hour later. You think you're so clever? This isn't over. That was it? No, love Jenna. No explanation. Just pure, concentrated spite. I'd be lying if I said it didn't rattle me a little. Jenna's not the type to take a loss quietly. She thrives on leverage, on being 3 moves ahead. For years, she steamrolled every family decision with that sharp smile and overly confident voice. When she talks, people nod not because they agree, but because it's easier than dealing with the fallout. And now I'd flipped her entire game board off the table. The next day, I found out she'd already started prepping the house for sale, scheduled a stager, had photos taken, even listed it on some private real estate site under off-market opportunities. I only found out because the listing agent, confused by the sudden pullback, emailed my dad asking why the property had gone dark. She had moved fast. But I'd moved faster. What scared me, though, wasn't her speed, it was how quiet she got after that text. Jenna, quiet is never a good thing. Then Mom started getting weird calls. Surveyors asking to come by. One guy claiming he was from a home maintenance follow-up program even though we hadn't requested anything. They were fishing. Testing for cracks. One night, I caught Dad staring at the living room wall, holding the old photo of all 3 of us kids. He didn't say anything for a long time. She used to be so sweet, he said finally. When she was little. You remember? I nodded. I did remember. That version of her existed once. But somewhere along the line, ambition replaced empathy. She still calls, he added quietly. Says you manipulated us. Says you tricked us into signing something we didn't understand. That hit me hard, not because I believed her, but because I knew Dad wasn't sure who to believe anymore. That's the worst part of this kind of betrayal. It doesn't just break trust, it makes everyone question their own judgment. That night, I wrote down everything. Every document. Every phone call. Every conversation. Just in case. Because I knew Jenna wasn't finished yet. 2 days later, my phone buzzed during a late lunch. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. Hello? Hi, this is Detective Rhodes with the County Sheriff's Office. I'm following up on a report filed by a Ms. Jenna L. She claims there's been financial misconduct involving her elderly parents. Says she has reason to believe they were coerced into signing legal documents under duress. I nearly dropped my fork. It was Jenna. She'd filed a report on me. I asked calmly, are you calling to charge me with something, or? No, he said, we're just doing a wellness check and verifying the situation. We have to follow up when accusations like this are made, especially involving elder financial abuse. The way he said abuse, like it was routine but heavy, it lodged in my chest like a splinter. We set up a time to meet. That whole night, I couldn't breathe right. My hands kept shaking. I wasn't worried I'd done anything wrong, I'd done everything by the book, but the idea of Jenna turning the law against me? That was a whole new level of messed up. When the detective showed up, I had a binder ready. Names, dates, the trust paperwork, my dad present and very lucid. Dad was calm but firm. We signed those documents because we wanted to. Jenna didn't tell us the truth. Our son did. The detective nodded, took notes, asked if they felt safe. Mom surprised me by reaching out and squeezing my hand. We're better now than we've been in a long time, she said. Honestly. He left 20 minutes later and said there'd be no further action taken. I stood at the door, watching him leave, and felt this strange mix of triumph and nausea. Because this wasn't just family drama anymore. This was war. And Jenna? She just fired her opening salvo. After the detective left, I figured things would cool down. They didn't. That weekend, Jenna showed up unannounced. She didn't knock. Just walked right in like she still had a key to the whole world. She stood in the entryway in heels and a fitted coat, like she was there to close a deal. You're unbelievable, she snapped, eyes blazing. Do you even hear yourself? You've poisoned them against me. I stayed seated at the dining room table, arms crossed, calm as I could pretend to be. I didn't poison anyone. I just showed them what you were doing. She laughed sharp and bitter. I was helping them. Setting up their legacy. You think this trust garbage protects them? You think you can just waltz in here and play savior? Dad came down the hall. That's enough, Jenna. She turned on him so fast it made me flinch. You're letting him manipulate you. You're throwing away everything we talked about. No, he said. I'm stopping you from taking something that isn't yours. Her mouth opened, closed. She blinked. And then her voice went quiet. So that's it, huh? You're just siding with him now. I wanted to say something, to push back, but I saw the look on Dad's face. The weariness. The finality. He didn't want this to be a debate anymore. So I stayed quiet. She spun on her heel and started toward the door, but then paused. Good luck with your little trust, she said. Hope you enjoy explaining to Mom and Dad why they'll be tied up in probate hell when this all falls apart. I watched her go, heart pounding. But she was bluffing. I'd already made sure the trust was airtight. Adam double-checked everything. There'd be no probate. No loopholes. Still, her words lingered. That night, I poured myself a drink, sat outside, and stared at the stars. I'd outmaneuvered her. Legally, ethically, completely. But it didn't feel like a win. It felt like a fracture that would never heal. And somehow I knew the real consequences hadn't hit yet. Because Jenna didn't lose quietly. It was the sign in the yard that set me off. 3 weeks after our last showdown, I pulled into my parents' driveway and saw it. A real estate sign staked right into the front lawn. Bright red letters. Jenna's brokerage. A smug little photo of her smiling in the bottom corner. I marched straight into the house fuming. Mom? Dad? They were in the den, stunned. Mom held a mailer in her lap that looked just like the sign, an open house announcement scheduled for this Sunday. Our house? Their house? She just put it there? I asked. Dad sighed. Didn't ask. Didn't call. We thought maybe it was a mistake. It wasn't. Jenna had forged forward anyway, hoping the optics of a live open house might pressure them, or me, into folding. And the kicker? The house wasn't hers. The listing wasn't legal. She had no right. But I knew exactly what she was doing. She wasn't trying to sell the house. She was trying to embarrass us. I called Adam. He nearly choked when I told him. She staged an open house? On a property she doesn't own? You realize that's fraud, right? Like actually criminal. That was the word I'd been waiting for. I filed a cease and desist through Adam's office that afternoon. The sheriff's department agreed to send a deputy to shut it down if she went through with it. Sunday came. I parked across the street. Sure enough, Jenna pulled up in a shiny white SUV, phone glued to her ear, sunglasses on, clipboard in hand. But when people started showing up, buyers, curious neighbors, one poor old couple with their dog in tow, the deputy stepped in. He explained calmly, clearly, and in front of everyone, the listing was unauthorized. The home wasn't for sale. Jenna's face went white. And then a red. She hissed across the lawn at me. You're ruining everything. I didn't respond. Just raised my coffee in a silent toast and let her drown in it. The crowd dispersed. Her sign came down. And by dusk, her SUV was gone. It was over. Or so I thought. 3 days after the open house debacle, she emailed me. Subject line, let's talk. No venom. No snark. Just unnervingly civil. I stared at it for a good 10 minutes before opening it. I've had time to cool off. Maybe we both made mistakes. Let's meet and figure out what makes sense for everyone. I don't want this to ruin our family. No apology. Just a thinly veiled truce offer and probably a trap. I agreed to meet, but on neutral ground. A coffee shop downtown. Cameras, people, nowhere she could spin the story in private. She was already seated when I arrived, sipping something in a reusable cup with her initials on it, dressed like she was heading to a TED Talk. "I'm not here to fight," she said before I even sat down. "Didn't think you'd bring a fruit basket." She ignored that. "Look, I messed up. I moved fast because I thought it was the right thing. I thought they'd thank me once the dust settled. They nearly lost their house, Jenna." Her smile faltered. She leaned in. "I'm willing to walk away from the whole thing, no claim on the trust, no legal contest. But I want one thing in writing." I stared at her. "Which is?" "That you won't contest my share of the inheritance when the time comes." Ah, there it was. The long game. She wanted to cash out later. I shook my head. "You can't ask me to sign off on something that hasn't happened yet." "You can," she said too quickly. "You just won't." "No, I won't," I said. "Because I don't trust you. Not anymore." She pushed her cup away a little too hard. "So that's it? You get to play hero and I'm the villain forever." I didn't answer. Because maybe, just maybe, she wasn't the villain. Maybe she was just scared. Of getting left out. Of losing control. Of not being the golden child anymore. But that didn't make what she did okay. "I'll let Mom and Dad decide what happens later," I said. "Not you. Not me. Them." She stood up without saying another word, eyes glassy, jaw tight. And then she walked out. That was the last time I saw her. At least for now. A month passed. No calls. No texts. No random visitors claiming to be contractors checking measurements. Just silence. And for the first time in a long time, it was peaceful. Mom started baking again, real baking, not Jenna's store-bought muffins dressed up on a plate. Dad fixed the loose porch step he'd been ignoring since the pandemic. We even had a few laughs over dinner, the kind that felt normal, like the house had finally taken a deep breath after holding it for too long. Then one afternoon, I found an envelope on the porch. No return address. Just my name. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "You win. But don't pretend you're better than me. We were both playing the same game, you were just better at hiding it. Congrats. J." No signature. Just that. I stood there for a long time holding it, trying to figure out what emotion it stirred. But there was nothing. No anger. No satisfaction. Just quiet. I burned the letter in the fire pit that night. Watched it curl and blacken until nothing remained but a few soft ashes blowing off into the dark. In the end, I didn't win because I was smarter. I won because I finally stopped hoping she'd change. I stopped giving her the benefit of the doubt. I protected the people who mattered. And that had to be enough. Now, every time I pull into the driveway, I see the porch light flick on. Every time I hear Dad hum while making coffee or Mom scold him for forgetting the eggs again, I remember what we almost lost and what we still have. Jenna might come back someday. But this time, she won't find a house she can walk into. Just a home that finally knows who it belongs to. And that's the story. Quiet. Final. But not forgotten.